All right.
All right. So you started in, what was it? You said 1990?
91. Hired in August of 90. Came out of the academy in 91.
All right. So I think what?
You went through a lot of chiefs.
Yeah, I think Betsy.
So Sam Nucci?
Betsy Watson.
Oh, Betsy Watson.
She was our chief at our graduation ceremony. I have no opinion on her whatsoever. Don't know anything about her. Don't even.
And then Nucci?
Remember, she left quickly. Nucci, I have a vague recollection of, but again, I'm a completely naive rookie officer. I have no opinion on Sam Nucci. You always hear things about everybody grumbles about the chief, and McClellan used to say that all the time.
I thought Nucci was good.
Everybody hates the chief. I didn't have any opinion on him whatsoever. It's just he was the chief, and I was just an officer ignoring everything above me other than maybe my sergeant, and I came to work and did my job. So we roll from Nucci to Bradford.
Yeah.
Same thing. I was clueless about Bradford. Of course, I knew he went from sergeant to chief, which is kind of unusual. He must have been just really badass sergeant. I don't know. But he vaulted up.
What does your gut tell you?
My gut says that he was eminently qualified. And obviously, it's a political appointment, and he fit the bill. I don't have anything personally firsthand experiences, but I did hear some things because when I went up to legal, part of our role reviewing ID cases is to present cases we did it to the executive assistant chief, but prior to me getting there, they would present the cases to the chief himself. And some of the attorneys that were still there working when I was there used to present cases to Bradford directly. Controversial cases, big publicity cases, stuff. And
these are cases involving police officers.
Internal affairs.
Where the officers are being investigated.
Internal affairs investigations. And as part of your role as an attorney is to just review the case, make sure everything's done, chapter government code 143, is it 142 or 143? 143. Make sure due process is followed. Make sure the sites are backed by sufficient evidence. Blah 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 blah.
143, 144, whatever it takes.
And 220, 221. So you would present the case to the chief. Well, he'd have his own copy, and you discuss it, and you would give your legal recommendation based on all the facts of what you thought adequate suspension or outcome would be, discipline. And I always heard that if you weren't fully prepared and you presented your case and Bradford was, they said he would read up on these cases very, very on top of it. And if he started asking you questions and you couldn't answer him or he caught you short, he would just motherfuck you up and down, call you names and cuss at you and everything. And they said, it was no joke, man. He'd just jump all over your shit and just, motherfucker, this is your case. You ought to know. I know this case backward and forward. You ought to know this case. But I never had the pleasure of presenting cases to Bradford. So I never had any clue, and I can't honestly remember the time frame of when he left, but I had no opinion on Bradford either, because at that point, I'm still in patrol, still ignoring basically the upper command. I couldn't even tell you who the assistant chiefs were back then. I was clueless. Again, I barely knew. I think Reddy was one of my captains at Central. Mm-hmm. Arnie Anderson.
Yeah.
Randy Ellen. Randy Ellen was my captain when I started law school in '96. But I was clueless, and I barely knew who my lieutenants were. I knew who my sergeant was, and I just came to work every day. So all the way up to Harold Hurt, I have really nothing positive or negative to say about any chiefs. Because I was clueless. Honestly, I was naive and just didn't pay any attention.
What did you think about Hurt?
Now, Hurt came in, and he came in from Arizona.
Right.
Old school, very old school mentality.
Wait, was he from Oxnard or was he from Arizona?
No, that was Acevedo.
Oh, you know
Oh,
what?
yeah, he was Oxnard.
Oxnard, California.
Yes, he started in
that's
Arizona.
right.
That's what it was. And he ended up in Oxnard, California.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's right.
So then he comes here, and
I only remember because they're the ones that started all the taser nonsense.
Oh,
yeah.
In California.
And he ushered it in here, did he not?
Yes, he did.
And then there's the rumor about somebody in his family was working for the taser company or they owned stock in the company.
Of course.
And they were.
Why would he be pushing it so hard unless he had an interest? I don't know. Just speculation.
But,
none of that was proven.
Well, yeah, but we've all learned that the Biden crime family has really opened the eyes of a lot of people as to how corrupt most politicians are. And because the Department of Justice does nothing about it, it's as if the corruption doesn't exist.
But he was a police chief. He's not a politician.
Oh, that's right.
I'm kidding, of course. So Harold Hurt gets there, and
he was extremely unqualified for the job.
I would argue yes. He comes in, and I remember there's speculation of, he's trying to bone up to pass the T-close exam. And I remember hearing rumors about that. He starts throwing things out like, who's this person working in my office? Apparently they're not worth a damn. Fire them. For some reason, I distinctly remember he thought he had the power to just simply start firing people at will. And they're like, no, Chief, you can't do that. You got to have cause. You got an ID investigation. You got to, have something to back up your desire to fire this person. And I remember being kind of baffled by that because I find it hard to believe. Classified officers at any level.
Wow, really?
And I remember him stating that he thought he had the power to just fire them at will, or at least get them the hell out of it.
Well, at least he knows the job.
Yeah. I forgot where I was going with that. But anyway, he gets in, and it was probably his idea. Like, he didn't want to be bothered, I would imagine, having these attorneys presenting IED cases to him. So I think it was at that point when the change happened. We started presenting our IED cases to the executive assistant.
Yeah,
chief.
he was lazy and stupid.
Well, perhaps.
No, he was.
Yes. Okay. So we started presenting.
And still is.
Executive Assistant Chief McClellan, and it would usually be the chief over IED. And I think for most of my time in legal, it was Chief Durden. But my interactions with Harold Hurt were few and far between. I remember there were a couple of times where I had to take a case. You have 180 days to investigate an ID case and blah, blah, blah. There's time constraints. And when a case would get very close for whatever reason, either somebody dropped the ball or it was just an extensive investigation, it would get close to that 180 days, they would just say, skip, presenting it to the chief, to the exec. Take it straight to Harold Hurt because, this thing's going to die in a day or two. And if the 180 days expires, officers out there watching know it could be a firing case, but if the 180 days expires, the most you can give them is a written reprimand. So it becomes like, oh my God, paramount, we got to get this in front of the chief. So I did have to present a couple of cases that were getting real short on time straight to Harold Hurt. And I just remember one time laying out the facts to him, and I made a reference to stop and go. Like I said, hey, chief, the officers in the case were being misleading about their location. I won't even go into details of the case, but they were being misleading to the dispatcher about their location. But I said, but it's not like they weren't doing anything. It's not like, they were writing tickets at another location while they told the dispatcher they were here working on a report because they liked writing tickets more than doing the reports. So they were being, I guess, untruthful. And I said, it's not like they're not doing anything. It's not like they're just hanging out, drinking coffee at the stop and go. And after hearing all that, he looks at me and goes, what's a stop and go? That's all he got from the whole conversation, apparently. What's a stop and go? I go, it's a convenience store, Chief. But did you hear anything else that I said? Anyway, so that was one experience with Harold Hurt. The other thing was he used to always get up from the table if you had a meeting with him or something. He'd say, I need to go make a phone call, a quick phone call. And he'd go into his bathroom. He had to take a leak or something. But he always, instead of saying, I got to hit the restroom, he would get up and he'd say, I got to go make a phone call. And he'd go into his bathroom, and private bathroom that he had in his office. And I always thought that was kind of funny. Anyway, Harold Hurt had a lot of strange ideas. I didn't think he was all that good of a chief. I was very happy to see him go for my own personal reasons. One thing I do remember is, and I think I mentioned this to you the other day, was one of the other things we did in legal was special projects. They would throw things at us, like look into the plausibility of designing a Kevlar turban in case we have any Sikh officers on the department. I'm not kidding you. That was one of the things they threw at us one time, a Kevlar turban for a Sikh officer to wear.
Kevlar turban.
Yes.
Anyway, Kevlar turban.
Yeah, the little hat turban thing.
So instead of it being just a helmet, it had to be a turban.
Yes, it would
made of Kevlar.
Yes, it would.
By the arms of Vishnu.
Anyway, that was just one thing. But special projects. Well, one of the special projects that was kind of floated and then quickly shot down. Harold Hurt wanted us to do a little special project and look into the feasibility of random polygraphs on officers. Just random, just like random drug tests, just every now and then, just pull an officer's number out of the hat, send them for a polygraph. Just, to see what we can, catch him on being deceitful on.
Well, I'm sure you could get a billion hits on that because you're like, well, what do they know? What's going on?
That was just unreal to me that he would even suggest that. And who knows? Somebody put that in his ear. I don't know, but I just.
Well, I heard a rumor. You can tell me if I'm right or wrong, but he couldn't even sign his own name, and that he had a machine in his office that signed his name for him. That's how lazy and stupid he was. Is that he wouldn't even sign his own name. Employees had to take it into this machine to sign for him.
Absolutely. Remember, discipline paperwork and all these things have to be signed off on by the chief of police. The chief of police is the arbiter of suspensions and everything. So it required his signature, and I can't confirm that he was unable to sign his own name. That's beyond me. But there was. I can swear on a Bible this. I saw it. There was a machine back either in the chief's office itself or in one of the little adjoining offices, like maybe where his chief of staff was housed or something. And it was a signature machine calibrated to sign Harold Hurt.
And did it hold like a pen that signed his name?
Yes, absolutely.
Really? You're kidding.
I never saw anybody use it. So I'm not going to lie and say I did.
Well, the machine wasn't there for its own. It
was just.
It wasn't a museum piece,
maybe. Yeah, it was a museum piece just there for.
It sure wasn't like one of those,
for grins.
Complete with a hand grenade on it says complaint number, take one. Wasn't a joke.
Pull tab. No, it was a signature machine, and I remember thinking, what in the hell? So
he couldn't sign his own name.
I can't testify that it was ever even used.
It would only need to be there if it was necessary.
But it was there.
It's a government. It's a government machine. They don't buy those for fun.
Yeah, I can't imagine those are cheap. And somewhere.
Now I want to go pull the city's.
Yeah, somewhere in the archives you have to, unless it was his personal machine that he brought with him from Oxnard. Perhaps, I don't know, but it was there.
So he could not sign his own name. Let us be perfectly clear.
No.
Oh my God.
Well, if the signatures are all identical, you know.
He was capable of making his mark, big X. No, I can't swear that he ever even used it, but I saw it. I saw that machine. Yeah. So, hey, people out there watching, other than police officers, retired and active, you might want to look into that. I don't know,
So after him was McClellan, right?
Yeah, Chief McClellan, and I won't say that I had built some kind of personal relationship with Chief McClellan, but for, 3-4 years at least, I'm presenting cases to him, meeting with him here and there. And you build up a rapport. And I really liked Chief McClellan. I did. He was very knowledgeable. He had a good sense of humor. Did his best, I guess, to kind of support the troops.
So the one thing I heard that as soon as he came into office that the assistant chiefs were telling each other, okay, I don't know exactly which assistant chief said this, but basically the point was so we don't have to fuck our officers over anymore. Yeah, basically.
I will tell you, I went straight from patrol into legal, and within weeks, it seemed like no time at all, I was sitting in front of him presenting IED cases, and it was intimidating. First of all, he's physically a large man, and he was the executive assistant chief at that time, probably had 30 plus years on. So you're sitting there and you want to be ready with your case and everything. And Chief Durden usually was sitting right there with him. And there were times, which is kind of funny, it's not surprising, but it's kind of funny, where we'd be in the little outer waiting area with all the attorneys and Chief Durden, and we'd kind of just be shooting the bull, talking about the case. Oh yeah, Chief, I got this, Jones case, blah, blah, blah. You go, oh yeah, that one. And almost without fail, he would sort of hint like he's agreeing with us. Like, I don't know, man. I think category D is a little excessive. And oh yeah, that's kind of excessive. And then as soon as we get in the meeting with McClellan would read it and, oh yeah, category D for sure. And Durden, oh yeah, Chief, excellent, right, you're correct. You could ask anybody I worked up in legal with. Every time, he'd tell us one thing, and it is what it is. But McClellan, I thought he usually tried to give the officers the benefit of the doubt. I can think in my head, and I won't even articulate them, but I can think of quite a few cases where he would kind of agree with us and go, "Yeah, I see your point." Especially in particular cases where like shooting at a fleeing vehicle. And I'll give you one quick example. Car pins the officer to a wall, backs up. The officer manages to get his gun out. And then the car squeals the tires like they're coming at him again. And the officer starts shooting. And then the car veers and takes off running. And you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shots, all fired, in a second probably.
All 5 are good except for the 6th one.
Close.
Okay.
Yeah. It was like,
figured.
well, these are all good. But that one where the car is clearly driving away, that you can't, that's not justified. And he would think about it, and he did. I know of at least one case, probably more than one, where he finally did say, yes, it's just human reaction, and we did not sustain, that final shot. But there were other chiefs, Montalvo, who would argue until she's blue in the face that absolutely that final shot was.
Do you ever think?
wrongful
Do you
and
think Montalvo ever saved anyone's life?
her own?
Do you think she ever risked her life to save somebody else?
No.
You ever put your hands?
What did she spend? Did she spend about 2 weeks in patrol? Maybe, I don't know.
No, I'm serious.
No, I don't know. Earlier in their careers, maybe they were still gung ho and weren't.
I doubt it.
I doubt it too, but who knows? I'd be willing to give her a tiny little benefit of the doubt that she actually did some police work at some point in her career. But I'll tell you this: for grins, I did when I told you I pulled up. All their records. And at the time, and I don't remember who the 4 execs were, but at the time I was up in legal, I was brand new. And just because I was thinking about these people are in positions of power, they've got experience, blah, blah, blah. How much patrol experience, how much of the actual nuts and bolts of police work do these people have? And I pulled up all 4 execs, and I had more patrol experience than all of them combined, which just made me laugh. And I was no great burner of, lighting the world on fire as a patrol officer, but I worked. I did a lot of police work in 13 years, and I had more combined patrol experience than all 4 of those execs combined. It's just comical. But anyway, we'll get back to McClellan. And it wasn't particularly just McClellan. I got this vibe from most chiefs, most assistant chiefs, was the I think I used the word contempt, but I don't really like that word. But the kind of just, I don't know, contempt, whatever. The negative vibe you get that they have for the average patrol officer.
Deep-seated hatred, maybe?
You could say that, and you wouldn't be 100% wrong. The negativity pouring off of them when we're discussing cases involving, you're involving discipline, you're involving infractions. And as a patrolman who's now reviewing cases, I read them, and of course, I'm probably biased, but I'm reading it from the perspective of a patrol.
No, you're not biased.
officer.
You're experienced. And the problem with the people you're talking to is they don't have experience.
You just said it.
Well, that's the point.
But you also need to understand is they're inherently lazy, and they don't want to do paperwork. They don't want to have to make decisions. They don't want to have to do shit. They want to be paid $150,000 a year to sit there,
much more,
and smile and go to lunch.
But that was my point.
And so they saw patrol officers as paperwork problems. Oh, there's a paperwork
liabilities.
Problem. Oh, look at that paperwork problem. Oh my God, look at that paperwork problem.
But the inference was always the absolute most negative inference towards the officer as possible. Oh, he knew exactly what he was doing, and he just said the hell with it, and he did it, or whatever. And I'm reading it, I'm like, no, he's probably just lazy, or just figured, well, hell, I can get away with not doing a report. This is a bullshit call, fucking I won't do a report. Who cares? Somehow it comes back around, bites me in the ass. Oh, you didn't get an extra job permit. And I've been there. I've been there as an officer, and didn't go to court.
Who didn't get an extra job permit?
Chuck McClellan.
This guy right here.
Yeah.
Oh.
I got a written reprimand for doing stand-up comedy without an extra job permit. You can't write those jokes. You can't.
You can't tell jokes in public.
Does that give you an idea of the frustration?
And he wasn't even getting paid for it. That's the best part. He was doing it for free.
But it was your time, and your time is the department's time, and time is money, and money is power. And what was time?
Power.
Anyway,
this was all about power.
So the negative vibe that was oozing off these assistant chiefs, and it wasn't just, I won't single out Charles McClellan, it was all of them. The more time you spend around, the more time you talk to them, is so negative towards the rank and file. And that blew me away. That really did. That blew me away when I went up to legal, and I was just like, oh my God, they really do sit up in the ivory tower and kind of look down on average officers and just think the worst And, you can maybe defend it and say, well, all they see is the bad stuff. And but
that's their fucking problem.
But that's
for not climbing out of the fucking ivory tower and going out there and working with their patrol officers that they supervise.
Absolutely.
So sorry, it's them, not us.
No, I get it. And it's like like the old excuse of like, oh, police officers just become cynical because whatever. Well, you see a bunch of shit, but I was blown away by just the negative vibe that I was getting from most of the.
They hate patrol officers. They hate
that's
them.
a strong word, but I saw it and I was blown away by it. My gut reaction, which I would trust, was just to be like, oh my.
And they hate lawsuits. And for some reason, they have this.
That could be me. That could be me. Hey, that guy didn't get an extra job permit because whatever. He was in a hurry. Oh, that's an excuse. You can call. You can do whatever. You could just not work the extra job. Well, day-to-day life, you run around, you try to cut corners. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. Whatever. You get lazy. It's human nature.
So as an average patrol officer, and we're going a little long, but I get it. As an average patrol officer with a law,
I'm going to ignore that.
With a law degree.
Yes.
Or as an average patrol officer who's a licensed attorney, I can tell you that at the Houston Police Department, they had this psychotic aversion to lawsuits. I don't understand the logic. Essentially because it's so hard to sue the government.
Which no one's aware of.
Yeah. In fact, it's almost impossible to sue the government in many instances. In about 90% of cases they think they could be sued for, there's not even jurisdiction for the court to hear the case.
But I wonder, and I think we talked briefly about this, how much of it is their lack of knowledge? How much is it that's just a way to use fear to control the troops? Just constantly tell them that they're a liability, and if you don't do this, or if you do this, you're setting the department up for liability. Blah blah blah. I find it hard to believe.
I don't know, Jerome. We had a chief of police who was either too lazy or stupid to sign his own name. Well, who surrounded him?
He's still out there working, by the way. 75 years old,
and now for the federal government.
Got it right there.